before you dive into number 9, I just
Yeah.
want to say this, and it really pains me, really pains me to say that we moved Roy Keane out of the top 10. That the Athletic had him at number 7, and and for the purpose of our list, we don't have Roy Keane, and we've put in John Terry. So as much as it hurts to say that, it is how it is. So yeah.
So I'm
Alright,
gonna,
so I'm just
I
going.
don't disagree with you at all because I myself got Roy Keane out of the list, and I
I think
myself
when Malu and
replaced
I
him with
discussed
Terry.
it, yeah,
Yeah, I
same.
have
When
also
Malu and
replaced him
I
with
were
Terry.
discussing it, this is the
So
same.
yeah.
This is one of the few things Malu and I agreed on. And this,
I'm shocked that this is one of the things we are all four aligned on. I'm really happy though. I'm a little surprised, but I'm really
I'm
happy.
not aligned, bro. By no means am I
Sorry.
aligned on this.
Three, three,
I
three,
have
three.
made the compromise. I have made the compromise because I know I I understand why we chose John Terry. Like if Roy Keane had to miss out, and if you told me it was because John Terry's name was being put in there, I was that's why I was okay with it. But by no means can I say that I would agree by that. Like on a standalone note, if you told me, I would probably disagree. But for the purpose of this, yes, let's run with it.
So I'm gonna go in defense of John Terry, and for us it was kind of three big buckets. I think number one, he was kind of integral to making, I think, Chelsea what it is today. He was in that first lineup that kind of transformed Chelsea's history in the modern Premier League to being what they are as captain. I mean, let's not forget he had Frank Lampard also, Roman Abramovich, Jose Mourinho, but he was a big part of that as well as captain and as the pivotal centre back kind of that their defense was organized around. So that's one. Number two is just the success of that defense. The first season they win, they currently hold the record for number of clean sheets in a season, 24 clean sheets. Epic defense. I mean, that's Jose Mourinho is known for like amazing defensive structures, and Chelsea was a big part of his legacy and his story built around defense. That was built around John Terry. Lastly, really underrated thing that we don't think about so much for defender, phenomenal goal scorer. Guy scored 42 goals in the Premier League. He's actually, if I'm not mistaken, he's like 14th in the Premier League in headed goals, and he's the only defender in the top 20. Yeah, the rest are all just strikers. So I think this were the three reasons for us was why Terry made it in.
To add to what you said, certain things which I 100% agree as to why he has to be in the top 10 is because the captain that he was, the leader that he was basically the heartbeat of the Chelsea team, and he transformed the Chelsea team largely just because of his character and presence. But there was something interesting that I was reading up about because in the athletic list you had Ferdinand at 11 and Terry at 14. And I was already I thought that Terry deserves to be in the top 10. And then I was just like doing some stats, and based on those stats, in terms of interceptions, Terry had 420 interceptions and Ferdinand had 341. In clearances, Terry had 1,852. Ferdinand had 1,718. In duels won, Terry had 1,362 to Ferdinand having 764. In goals, like you rightly mentioned, he was on 42 and Ferdinand was 11. Aerial battles won, Terry was 702, Ferdinand was 315. That just goes to show like what an amazing defender he was. And like obviously there are certain things which are more than just numbers. That is the stature that he had in the team, which transformed the team, and that is why, according to me, he has to be top 10.
one more thing which I find very impressive from the stats perspective is he has almost a season's worth of games more in clean sheets than Ferdinand. Almost a season's worth of games. Terry sits on 214 and Ferdinand 189.
But guys, why are we comparing the two?
No, I mean,
He
I
was
was just
not
like,
even on the list for us.
for the purpose, like these two are the highest on the top 20.
Because they were the highest rated defenders and Gio was above him, so that's why I was just trying
Oh,
to
in that sense,
to rationalize him into the top 10 over Rio.
But
on
we
that
weren't
day.
rationalizing Rio in the first place. Even I was certainly shocked that he was at 11. As much as I love Rio, obviously I love him. I personally, I always liked Vidic more. So anyway, Vidic was not even on the 60 list of the Athletic. So it was nice to have Rio high, but higher than Terry was always questionable.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how or why that happened, but
I think
yeah.
one.
Also, Terry, Chelsea has 5 Premier Leagues, and Terry does as well. So Lampard can't say that. Lampard can't say that. He can say only three with Chelsea. Yeah,
I think 4. No, I
No,
may be
it's
wrong.
four.
four,
It's four.
four,
Yeah, four.
Yeah,
Yeah, four.
yeah.
four. Okay, so I mean, he has won every Premier League that Chelsea has won. He's been part of the team, and that's just
No
mega.
doubt.
That's really.
Oh,
I mean,
maybe. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, you were saying something.
No, you're right. I think I might have noted this.
Lampard, I think, yeah. I think Lampard's
Lampard
4
does
could
have-
have been with City.
Oh, maybe. I'm not sure.
Did he
Yeah,
win that here?
I might be
No,
wrong.
I,
Yeah,
I
Anyway,
don't think
I
so.
don't
It's
think
with
we
City, it's
should.
not with City.
yeah. No, but that's fine.
Anyway, but
I-
yeah, we get the point.
He's just so integral to
whatever you say.
Chelsea as a club.
John Terry
Yeah,
was Chelsea
Indeed.
Football
And,
Club.
and for way too long. I mean, for all of what we remember of Chelsea, he's right there.
Yeah, and
He's
Gui,
their Ryan Giggs. I think that's the best way to put it.
and Gui, you're right.
He's
Sorry,
their
Frank
Ryan Giggs.
Lampard has 3 Premier Leagues. He doesn't have 4.
Three.
Sorry, that was my mistake. He has 3. He does have 3. And I think just final thing
My
on John
mistake
Terry.
too.
But just last thing
Yeah.
on John Terry, he did whatever it took to win. If it meant putting his face on a cigarette packet, he did it. If it meant like sleeping with one of his teammates' ex-wives, I'm just kidding. John Terry's awesome. I definitely want him in my top 10. He did whatever it took to win, man.
Okay. That's
Oh.
7, 8, and 9. So
Okay.
now
That's Terry on number 8 now, right?
So no, Terry was number 9 because Aguero was number 8.
This was Terry was
Yeah,
nine.
sorry, my bad. So now it's number 10.
Now, my favorite position, and like it tears me
Krishna,
to
tell
say
me you
this,
sneaked one
but
of ours in. Let's
Oh
tell-
no, I'm sorry, man. It's not. It's not us. I'm sorry.
it's the Scouser.
Gerrard.
It's the Scouser. It has
Stevie
to
G.
be. It's Steven Gerrard at number 10. So, okay, let's get into it. I think Krishnan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll do a brief overview and then hand it off to you guys because I know this is one that you all I think will have some thoughts on. Stevie G, definitely an iconic Premier League player for the time that we've watched. 504 appearances, 17 seasons with Liverpool. He scored 121 goals for Liverpool. Assisted, he has 89 assists. But the overwhelming fact of the matter is he does have 0 Premier Leagues. But I hand it off to you all with, and we will come back with our justifications as well. But hand it off to you all with what you all thought on Stevie G. And
So,
where you're
I
at.
mean, it's kind of okay. I don't want to call it unfortunate. He didn't win a Premier League. Okay, as sad as it is for Liverpool fans or him is whatever it be. Alright, he doesn't have a Prem. Is I mean he has 120 goals, and 120 goals is also pretty big for a midfielder, right? And he did it in how many seasons? As many or a little fewer than Lampard. I think 3 or 4 seasons fewer than Lampard. So I mean, it's not that bad of a stat for a midfielder. And let's not forget, he's made the team of the season most times ever. He's made it 8 times under the team of the season, which speaks a lot about his performance in a Liverpool side, which wasn't doing wonders, right, in the 2000-2010 decade. But
So for
okay,
me, what I would
that high up again. Sorry, he was eighth on the list for the Athletic.
He was 8 for the Athletic.
Yes.
Yep, he was 8 for the Athletic. Yep.
Okay, so my questions remain. There are in the top 15. I think there's Silva, there's Vieira also. All right. So I mean, I suppose you have justified Gerrard being over them in some manners. I would love to hear it.
So Gui, did you have Vieira or Silva at 10?
I had Vieira at 10 for the sole reason that he made Arsenal click the moment he walks in. He makes that side his home. He's there right up until when Arsenal is challenging for the top spot. He's there for all of those seasons. He's there for the 3 Premier Leagues. Also, he is bullying everyone. Doesn't matter who is in front of him. So he is the big dog on the field when he walks onto it. And again, he's not going to have anywhere near good goals or assist stats. Right? That's not what we're looking at him for. It's just the sheer dominance on the field and leading the team. Also, I want to know if that I don't think there is
So
another
Gui, I
one.
just wanted to add to,
Yeah,
I just wanted to bring this up. So Krishnan and I did discuss Vieira, and why the simple reason why we could not consider him in the top 10 was because we left out Roy Keane. They essentially
Yeah.
performed the same role for their teams. And Keane, according to me, was definitely a better player than Vieira. You may debate that, but
Of course I will.
of course, yeah, you will. But I just feel that Roy Keane had much more to his game than Vieira had. So if we were leaving Roy Keane out, Vieira couldn't be brought in. David Silva was another consideration as well for us. But then what we were thinking was Aguero and Silva together won the leagues.
Yeah.
So to put both of them seems very unfair, because then we have 2 players from Chelsea and 2 from City, and that doesn't highlight how the Premier League era really went in terms of if you're looking at success overall. And so we looked at it from literally the entire era, number of titles for each club, and that's how then eventually we had to really decide on whether to keep him or do we not. And at the end of the thing, Krishnan and I thought that, a number 10, no matter who comes before, has to be fixed as Steven Gerrard. He had to be there on that list, and we'll get into those details after we hear Shubham's opinion.
So for me, to be very honest, initially when I saw the list, I saw Scholes at 19 and Gerrard in the top 10. So for me, I was like, this is not possible. Scholes has to be in the top 10. What is Gerrard doing out there? He didn't win anything and stuff like that. And this was probably like me just being extremely biased and without like getting into the stats. And then once I got into the stats, I would just like to share something with you guys. So once I got into the stats and I was doing some research on it, these are goals contribution per game. And I was looking for Scholes, Gerrard, and Lampard. Scholes was the lowest with 0.32, and Lampard was obviously 0.46, but Gerrard was at 0.42. So that's pretty close. Passes per game, Scholes was the highest with 61.6, and Gerrard was at 55.6. But look at the through balls per game. We have Gerrard at 0.72, and Scholes was at 0.28. Crosses per game, Gerrard 6.3, with Scholes just at 0.3. Tackle success, we all know that Scholes wasn't the greatest tackler, but Gerrard was again higher than him at 73%. And cross accuracy, again, we had Gerrard at 23% compared to Scholes being at 21%. So after I saw all these stats, for me, I was personally more convinced about the fact that at least I convinced myself that why Scholes doesn't deserve a top 10 place and why Gerrard does, even though he never won the Premier League, as just the center mid that he was, he according to me deserves a spot in the top 10. So yeah, that is my justification as to why.
So that's great. So we don't have a problem. I was worried.
I just had one other point, and I think we brought this up in the context of Lampard, and I really like that what you brought up, Malu, in terms of the tackle rate, especially because I think that's something that gets kinda. I think Gerrard is the best definition of a box-to-box midfielder in the sense that this guy was finishing plays with goals and could be the last-ditch defender on that Liverpool side. And admittedly, it's a little bit because like Liverpool sometimes had a little bit of a dodgy defensive line, but he really was like finishing plays at both ends of the field. Like nobody else, I think, on this list. I think even like a Lampard, I would say, is a little more skewed towards the offensive side. Gerrard really was tracking back at an incredible level. Which I think kind of also contributed to us having him there.
Firstly, I've never understood the comparison between Scholes, Lampard, and Gerrard. I understand Lampard and Gerrard, but Scholes had a very different role. He was not meant to play that role. He was meant to sit properly as a pure central midfielder. And just get at the edge of the box to knock in a few goals here and there, but that was still not his role, where he was expected to score, let's say, 15 goals a season, or even 10 for that matter. So I feel that comparison is unfair to Scholes. I understand where the stats come from and all of that. I'm not questioning that, but I don't think it's fair to Scholes to compare the two basis their roles in terms of attacking, at least the attacking mindedness of the players. Crosses per game, of course not. What about the pass percentage? I think that's something that you cannot ignore. Scholes' pass
In fact,
percentage was.
In fact, that was a stat I was trying. That was a stat I was trying to find, but unfortunately, I couldn't find it because I wanted to know what is the pass percentage per game
So
between
I
Gerrard and
think,
Scholes, because
so
that was the analysis I was.
yeah, so I think the career pass percentage of Scholes was around 83%, or maybe even higher. And I think Gerrard was somewhere in the mid 70s. Just so again,
Okay.
you cannot compare those because they were set up in a different system with different roles, where Scholes was expected to loop balls behind the defenders so that the strikers can run onto it, and so that the wingers can then go wider. Gerrard had to play those one-touch games with the strikers or with the wingers, and then try to make space, get into the box so that he's there at the edge to latch onto some chance. So I think in terms of that, that's why I I never have liked the comparison drawn between all three of them together. But
No, so what I would like to say is, like, while I understand Scholes, Gerrard, and Lampard, all of them midfielders, but they had different roles, and they weren't exactly the same sort of positional midfielders. Isn't might not be 100% accurate, but what I would like to say, at least this is for my point of view, after getting into all the stats that I just mentioned and reading, like getting to the stats of Gerrard, I just realized that even though he didn't win a Premier League, the guy deserves his place in the top 10 just because he was a fantastic midfielder. And his numbers are so good that although his numbers in terms of winning the Premier League is zero, but his other stats are so good that it's not possible to have a top 10 leaving him out. So
I think-
exactly,
if
Shubham,
anything, at least the numbers give context to why he deserves a top 10.
And I think
that's exactly why we left Krishnan and I left him at 10. Sorry, Krishnan, I cut you off.
Oh no,
Go
no,
ahead.
no, no problem. And the sad part about it, which I know is obviously going to be a ghost in his cabinet, is the guy came brutally close to Premier Leagues. He's come second thrice, and each of them are not these like runaway seasons. The first one's probably the furthest away. He loses by 7 points in the 2001-2002 season. He loses by 4 points in 2008-2009, and the last one he keeps coming closer. 2013-2014 is by 2 points. We all know the history. We
That's the
all
season when he
know
slipped.
that's the slip season, and the guy came brutally close. And I feel like our arguments would be, I wonder how different it would be if he just had that one. It'll always be a ghost for him, for sure.
So even though, like Krishnan mentioned, he may have not won the Premier League, it's not only the Premier League. Liverpool failed to win major trophies during his time altogether. I just question whether they were built to
Please,
win. I don't think they were.
I need you to mention the
Yeah, so
Champions League,
right, of
or
course.
else you're gonna have a storm.
Yeah.
No. So I was just
Please.
going to start. So he won 2 FA Cups only over 17 seasons with Liverpool. Then obviously that infamous Champions League final in Istanbul where they beat AC Milan coming back. That was another game altogether. I mean, literally the next biggest final you can think of after the United Bayern Munich final in Barcelona. Literally the next biggest comeback win that football has seen. Just England's Footballer of the Year in 2009. He was a Ballon d'Or runner-up, I believe. 504 appearances in the Premier League, 120 goals, as Gui mentioned, 92 assists. One thing, he has played over 41,000 minutes in the Premier League. When you put that into perspective, it just tells you that the longevity again, the fact that he stayed loyal to a team that was struggling because it was his dream to see them succeed. He could have easily left. He could have gone to a Barcelona probably at a time, or maybe even a Madrid. He was that level of a player. but he stuck by. He dreamt of helping them win the Premier League. Sadly, never happened. But just like he, Krishnan also said the perfect player, and he was definitely the perfect football player. Uh, it, I would love to have someone like Steven Gerrard, because it was not only his skill, it was his hard work and everything. And I think the Athletic had a quote in their article for him where they said he was a better goal scorer than Keane and Vieira, a better ball winner than Scholes, and he had even more stamina than Yaya Toure. And I think that summarizes it perfectly. So he was the only reason he's 10 and not higher up is because that Premier League title eludes him. But as a player, no doubt, one of the greatest ever. So he had to be there. He just had to.
Okay, just because I am the only one who didn't agree on that one, I'm going to just give. I'm just going to say something about Vieira, which for me is very big. He won Player of the Season, and there's no other person in who performed his role to win a Player of the Season in as many seasons in the Premier League, whatever many ever been played up until now. A Player of the Season at defensive mid hasn't happened. Also, just again, I'm going to throw it out there in case I don't think anyone's going to reconsider their 10th place pick. But if you try and rationalize the way we rationalize the number one spot, all right, and okay, again, I need to ask Mazhar and Maru to think of, to not think of Keane when you think of this comparison, all right? Because if maybe Keane was already in the list, then you would come up with a different answer for this comparison as opposed to with Keane not being on the list. Would you pick Vieira or Gerrard in your team? Just again, as a question as to how we set. I'm not asking you to settle the 10th place like we settled the first place. Also, this is not how we settled the first place. Just this was the convincing factor for Malu, like how we tried to convince him. I don't think he's convinced yet, but yeah. So if that were the question and Keane were already in your top 10, who would you rather pick, Vieira or Gerrard?
I would
In
go with
your
Gerrard.
team. Again, this is just a question. Like I don't mind all of y'all answering Gerrard, but like for me, it would be Vieira.
For me, it's
personally,
Vieira as well.
I would take Gerrard.
For me, it's Vieira. Gui, I won't deny it, because I've always liked that. I've liked central defensive midfielders. It's my favorite position in football. So it always has been.
You put a dominating man on that spot of the field, and that is when you actually begin to control the game. I think there have been
But
enough
I can make
sides.
many
There have been
arguments about
yeah,
this.
yeah. No, I was just, again. This is not me making an argument for Vieira being 10th place, because I think I've been voted off. Okay, that my pick has been voted off, and I don't mind it. Okay, it's okay. It's a 3 versus 1 thing. So
I can see the disappointment on your face. What do you mean you don't mind?
No, it's okay. Like I'm not to contest it much, but just for the sake of debate, I asked that question. Like, would you have Vieira over Gerrard? I don't like. For me, that I would never see that happen. That it would never occur to me to have Gerrard over Vieira in my side. Again, nobody's asking my opinion as to, okay, as if I were someone who's building the best squad there is on the planet. But but that's just my take on it. Like if that was a convincing, if that was how we tried to convince Maru our first spot for Henry, can I by any means just push you towards considering Vieira? Maybe not, but I will try.
Gui, I had discussed this with Krishnan as well, and we were willing to push anyone into number 9 because that was the vacant slot. For us, Gerrard was fixed at 10 because he had to be there, but because that Premier League title eludes him, he couldn't be in any higher spot. So 10 was fixated. So I would say he would be my 10 if I didn't have Gerrard at 10. I could potentially say that Vieira or a Silva or whoever would be my potential 10 if we weren't constricted by various other factors and if we didn't have the other players also on the list. So as a standalone, I can agree.
Now that you say this, I want to know if you have to, for example, hypothetically, like with our list currently that we've discussed, it finishes with Gerrard at 10. But hypothetically, if you have to put Vieira at number 10, and you have to remove Gerrard, then what would be your rationale for it? Like, why would you do that?
I wouldn't. That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't put if Gerrard was if Gerrard had even one Premier League title, Gerrard would be probably a 6 or a 7 for me. But just not having that title at the end of the day has cost him a place in a higher slot. But he's too good a player to be left out.
But not,
I
think
am
top
I
10,
think
yeah.
I am
I
okay
think-
in leaving out Vieira simply because I've taken John Terry, who in place of him, and I'm okay with it because I already have my Arsenal player in number 1. So in terms of that, and like I said, I'm looking at the Premier League era. If I'm talking about the number of titles, so I'm trying to justify the number of players in the top 10 also basis the number of titles that those clubs have won. United having the most has 4 players on our list. Chelsea having the second most titles has 2 players on the list. Arsenal again 3 titles, so we have 1 player there. City again 4 titles, we have 1 player there. Gerrard just needed that spot because he is definitely an all-time top 10 player in the Premier League. So that was how we basically agreed upon. Krishnan and I agreed upon the list and said that okay, we have to settle it like this. There can obviously be more permutations and combinations. If it was my list alone, it probably would have read slightly different. I was a bit torn. Maybe Vieira would slip in at 9 for me, and maybe so like it could be. But
let's
that's
just agree that Vieira does cause a problem in terms of consideration for the top.
Yes, just for you, Gui, we'll say
Yes,
that.
yes,
Absolutely. In any. So I think that so that gets us to our top 10, which was I think at the very least feel I wonder if we're all satisfied or we're all dissatisfied. I feel it's one of the two with the result. But I thought
so
maybe
Krishnan, I think we have to say that we are satisfied because this was our list.
The two of us are not too happy. The two of us are not too unhappy. Rather, I think it worked out. It worked out pretty nicely.
Really, what honestly, other than the Giggs and Henry thing,
yeah,
I'm pretty much satisfied with the list. I think otherwise our list is pretty spot on.
And I'll tell you what, if Henry wouldn't have been in first spot, I would have just made this conversation 4 hours longer. I would have gone into every stat I could have found, which is right in front of me on an Excel sheet, and I would have tried bumping every United player lower and lower and lower. I would have made my case for Lampard, for Vieira, for Terry. I would have made my case for Silva, Aguero, everyone to be over. Whoever it is possible to be on that list. I would have even batted for Gerrard had only not been first on the list. Right? Okay, I'm not, but yeah, that really did soften up my approach to your top 10.
I think that's kind of the fun part that we've had these dynamic of like just being supporters of different teams that to some extent are kind of on the opposite spectrum of success in the last 10 years, which has been kind of fun. So I thought maybe just to round it up, maybe we could just go through again who Athletics top 20 were, and then kind of go through our top 10 at the end of it. So maybe we can take 5 each of the Athletics top 20, if that works. So for again, just to confirm, the Athletics top 20 were: number 1 was Thierry Henry, number 2 was Alan Shearer, number 3 was Eric Cantona, number 4 was Ryan Giggs, and number 5 was Cristiano Ronaldo. Mazhar, you're just next on my video, so I figured if you want to take 6 to 10.
Sure. So 6 was Frank Lampard, 7 Roy Keane, 8 Steven Gerrard, 9 Wayne Rooney, and 10 Sergio Aguero.
Then 11 we have Ferdinand, 12 we have Silva, 13 we have Vieira, 14 John Terry, and 15th was Dennis Bergkamp.
To round up the top 20, we had Eden Hazard at 16, Peter Schmeichel 17. 18th was David Beckham, 19th Paul Scholes, who I'm really sure Malu is very upset about. And
No, in fact,
20th was,
I justified why I don't think he deserves a top 10 spot. So
and,
I'm at peace.
now, yes, now you are at peace. And 20th was Ashley Cole.
Yeah, Cashley, let's go. Rounding up our top 20.
I mean, that word stuck for so long.
Anyway.
And this is our top 10 that we have, I would say, rather like jointly decided on. So yeah, to start with, Henry. Second was Ryan Giggs. Third, Cristiano Ronaldo. Fourth, Shearer. Fifth was Cantona. Sixth was Lampard. Seventh was Rooney. Eighth was Aguero. 9, Terry. And 10 is Steven Gerrard.
Here, like Malu just joking up saying the 2 gigs.
but to be fair, I think we bumped up gigs from what the Athletic had. So from 4 to 2. So I think it's a slight bitter pill for Shubham to swallow. It's not that big. I think someone will be really angry at seeing this will be Shearer. If he ever watches this, then he's going to cut us. He's going to find us and just make us suffer.
I think he's going to ask us to stand in goal while he finishes at the age of 50. He finishes goal past. Every goal is going to whiz past our face. My God.
So, but I must say the Athletic did a pretty good job in terms of at least they're choosing their top 10 players. The order, of course, was always going to be debatable and open to everyone's opinion. But we only added John Terry from outside the top 10. So Roy Keane was the one who we moved out. So
yeah, it was basically what we did was a little bit of reshuffling and getting Terry into the top 10 and removing Roy Keane. So yeah, I think to round it up, this is our top 10. And after a lot of debate, we have jointly managed to come with a top 10. Now what's interesting is I want for all the viewers watching this to let us know what you guys think about Athletics top 10, our top 10, what would be your top 10. You can drop it down in the comments below. And also about all the rationale in the debate that we've had to come up with a list. You will agree with it, disagree with it, or would you all move the players in a different order, and put it down in the comments giving your justifications. And to everyone who missed the first episode on VAR and rule changes, the link will be in the description below. Follow us on all our social media platforms. All those links will be provided. And we shall see you guys next week again with another episode. And yeah, till then, we would like to get a dialogue going around this topic. Let us know your thoughts on it.
Hi everyone, and thanks for listening to that 3-part episode on our Premier League top 10. It was definitely a really fun episode for us and definitely a road down memory lane. Just to recap our top 10, we had Thierry Henry at number 1, Ryan Giggs at number 2, Cristiano Ronaldo at number 3, Alan Shearer at number 4, Eric Cantona at number 5, Frank Lampard at number 6, Wayne Rooney at number 7, Sergio Aguero at number 8. At number 9, we had John Terry. And at number 10, Steven Gerrard. Thanks so much for listening. Leave comments with any thoughts you had on our top 10, whether you agree, disagree, anyone you think should be included, maybe should not be included. Leave your comments on any of our social media platforms. And if you enjoyed this video, please do like, share, subscribe. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and you can listen to us on Spotify as well. Thanks so much for all the support, and watch out for episode 3 coming out next week. See you.